managed to access the committee report of the judges panel that has been set up by the apex court of the country. This is for the rehabilitation or measures in the state of Manipur. This committee, in fact, has issued certain directions to be addressed, and CNN News 18 has accessed that very committee report that has been put out by the judges panel set up by the Supreme Court of the country. Let me take this across to my legal correspondent, Ananya, who is joining us with all the details. Yes, Ananya.
Well, definitely, Griya, we've managed to access this particular committee report that has been, given out to the Supreme Court. Remember that this committee headed by Justice Geeta Mittal, former judge of the Delhi High Court and also the Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court, has been heading this particular panel. And remember that it was tasked, basically, this panel was tasked to carry out rehabilitation measures in the state of Manipur. And now they, after holding a particular meeting and after discussing it with various stakeholders, now identified certain problems and have also suggested certain measures. Now there were various apprehensions with regards to how these settlements that were there in Manipur were burnt down, and these settlements were being removed after they were being burnt out. The debris was being removed. So for that, what has been suggested by the committee is that immediate satellite imagery of the topographical structure of all damaged village needs to be carried out. And I quoted from that particular report that GPS mapping and photographs of the state as at present needs to be taken both for the purposes of criminal investigation as well as for the nature and location of the destroyed villages and properties. It was pointed out that this is necessary for also enabling effective damage assessment. Now, next big problem that was thing and was being discussed in the Supreme Court hearing constantly also was that bodies that were kept in mortuaries in Imphal, basically the identification of the dead bodies is yet another problem. What is happening at this point of time is that the bodies are kept in mortuaries in Imphal, and these bodies are the people are not being able to access those bodies to identify them as they're living at high hilly areas in those relief camps. And what has been suggested is that authorities actually go on and devise a method to actually remove, for the remote identification of these dead bodies. Next is with regards to the students that are facing a lot of problems with regards to not being able to continue their studies. And for that, the central government's intervention has been sought. What is suggested by the committee basically is that, displaced students can be accommodated in various institutions of similar nature in other states. So various measures have now been suggested. So how the Supreme Court has said that it will issue directions on Friday. So we'll have to wait and watch as to how would the topmost of the country incorporate these particular suggestions that have been given out by the committee, and how would it follow. Griya.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Ananya. In fact, we were talking about how we managed to access the committee report of the judges panel that's been set up by the apex court of the country. My colleague Toya is with us on the broadcast, and she is going to be taking us through the fine print of what does that committee report really say. Over to you, Toya.
All right, let's walk you through now all of the measures that the Supreme Court panel that we're talking about has said are necessary. Firstly, it's important to point out that they've said that the intervention of the central government is essential, as you can see. Now let's take a deeper look very quickly at each of the measures. Firstly, measure of rehabilitation should ensure that the displaced persons are rehabilitated at the original places where from they are displaced. So no other sites from the original places they were. Second, urgent effort to trace out the missing people needs to be undertaken. Number three, immediate measures need to be taken to restore all schools so that students can once again resume education across the state. Now, the safety of prisoners, and this is key here, especially tribal prisoners that are lodged in jail, should be absolutely ensured. They've also said that urgent steps must be taken to get the restoration of academic records, including identity cards in this case. Because remember, it is important to point out that efforts like this are going to be required. I just want to walk you through the second page over here. Critical supplies of baby food, including, for example, Lactogen and Cerelac that are not available in relief camps. This is relief camp specific, the next few measures we're going to be talking about. Grave apprehensions have been expressed that the damaged and burnt settlements are being hastily removed to eliminate traces of the very existence of the villages. During the meeting, the request was mooted immediately. Satellite imagery of the topography. This is what our colleague, my legal correspondent Ananya Bhatnagar, was saying, that satellite imagery of the topography and structures in all of the damaged villages will be provided. Dead bodies have been kept in mortuaries in Imphal. And again, let's touch on this again. College and university students who are in relief camps in the hills and are unable to attend their colleges and universities. The suggestion of the Regional Institute of Medical Sciences is that such students be accommodated in the same course in institutions of a commensurable measure. So these are some of the offerings that the panel has put forward. We've got this, as you can see, this document. I'll go back. Now my colleague Griha continues to anchor the show. Let's go back to her.
Thank you so much for that, Toya. And that was the fine print of that committee report of the judges panel that's been set up by the Supreme Court. And this is specifically for the rehabilitation measures that have been put in place in the civil war-torn state of Manipur. This committee, remember, has issued those guidelines, those directions that Toya was just breaking down for us. This needs to be addressed, and that is the important aspect that both my colleagues Ananya and Toya were looking at, and that is what we have learned through this committee report that we just presented for our viewers.